Hello and welcome to this home improvement video from eWardWinning Outdoors at ewardwinning94.wordpress.com. Today's project is adding some shelving in a basement storeroom. This is one that serves as a tornado shelter for me, but also as a additional pantry. And what I'm going to do here could apply in any room that has unfinished stud channels like you see here. The other side of this wall is finished, but on this side you have an open stud channel. So to start with, I want to make sure my shelves are fairly level. So I'm just going to put my longer level across here. Make sure the bubble is in the center there. And then make marks on both sides. And then from there, I'm going to make a mark back along the inside of the channel so I know where to put my blocks. I'm going to have some wood blocks that are going to support these shelves, and I want to make sure that they're level. So didn't get that mark quite right, so I'll redo it. There we go. And then I've already pre-cut some wood blocks, and I have some screws here. What I'm going to do to support the shelves that we're going to put in here in a few minutes is I'm going to put these wood blocks in. These wood blocks will be the support for the actual shelves. So I will place them right below the line here just so I can see it. Screw it into the stud. And I'll do one of these on each side, and that will give me something to mount the shelf on. That cracked a little bit, but that's fine because all that's got to do is hold the weight vertically. Okay, I went ahead and mounted the other block while the video wasn't running, just because all you were going to see was the back of my head anyway. Do a quick check with the level, make sure that it is level between those, and then we are ready to cut and install our shelf. And I'm actually going to do several shelves at different levels here, but I've picked this one just because it's going to be a nice easy one to show within the video. So our next step is to cut the actual shelf, and then we'll install that here in the next segment. Before we do start on the shelf though, I wanted to show a couple more little things here. I use 2x2 studs or supports here, and you could probably do better making these out of a 2x4. What I didn't show you, because it would have been boring to watch, but it took several efforts to actually get one of these that worked. My first attempt was with a block made of oak, and it was so tough and so hard I actually snapped off my screws when I was trying to screw them in. So I got some softer pine wood. It was enough softer that it split when I ran 2 screws through it. So a bigger piece of wood like a 2x4 would be less inclined to split. But if your situation was a little different, you might not even need these blocks. If you had openings on both sides where you could get to both sides of your stud, it'd be much easier just to run a screw through the stud into your shelf when you install it. Might not be quite as strong as having it actually sitting on another block, but it'd be a whole lot simpler. But as you see here, we really can't do that because this stud is up against the door jamb. This stud is up against the foundation wall because it's a very small room. If you were in a wider open one though with several studs in a row, screwing from behind would be a whole lot simpler. The one thing you might have to do would be to offset your shelves, one on one side being slightly above the other, just so you can get to the back side of the shelf through the stud to screw it in. But with that, it would make it a simpler project for you, and you wouldn't have to worry about splitting these stupid little things. I got them in, they worked, and so next we will make the shelves to actually install. Okay, so we have prepared our mounting. We've discussed mounting options, and it's time to actually make some shelves and get them installed, which is what we're here for. So to start with, we want to get our measurement. it looks like these studs are going to be 13.5 inches apart. Oop, didn't have it quite lined up there. 13 3/4 inches apart. So that's the spacing we're going to want to have for our shelves that we're going to make to install here shortly. So we take that measurement around the corner into the workshop where I have the radial arm saw set up here. And I'm going to mark right on the edge of my board at 13 3/4 inches. Make a little V-shaped mark there. The reason for the V-shape is if you just make a single mark, you're almost never perfectly square, and then you don't know exactly which part of the mark you're actually aiming for. Before I turn it on, I'm going to light it up to make sure that my saw is hitting it just on the edge of that mark to where it'll be about one saw blade narrower than what that mark shows. And the advantage of that is if I'm slightly too narrow, it'll fit between the studs. If I'm slightly too wide, it won't work and we'll have to come back. And with that, we have a shelf cut. So we should be able to go back, and if I cut it and measured it right, it should install pretty easily. And we're back here where we're installing the actual shelf. So you recall we put the blocks in, screwed them to the wall, cut our shelf, and it's going to be a little on the snug side, but it's going to fit. Tap it into place there. You'll notice this one sticks out. I chose to make this shelf out of a 1x6. Studs are typically a 2x4, which means they're actually about 3.5 inches across. The 1x6 will be about 5.5 because no lumber these days is actually the measurement they call it. It's usually a 1/2 inch less on the bigger stuff. A 1 inch is actually 3/4 of an inch. But at any rate, I made them a little bigger because that allows just a little more room for setting stuff without really impeding into the space of the room. If I'd have wanted to use a 1x4, it would have fit right flush within the stud channel here. And if you're just wanting to be able to store small stuff, that might be an option for you. Depending on what you're doing, just setting it in here like this may be plenty. I'm going to go ahead and install a couple of screws just to kind of help hold it in place. And here you have the option, you could angle it and toenail it into the stud, or you could go straight down and screw it into the support post there. So that's what I'm going to do on this one. A little wobbly there trying to get started. Snug it down. That makes it good and solid, so if I do set something that's a little heavy on the outer edge here, it'll be still pretty solid and won't tip over. This one, just to show the difference, I'm going to toenail this one in. And what that just means is I'm going in at an angle. And that actually screwed into the stud here. Both options are perfectly functional. So with that, we have a really solid shelf here. And if I want to, say for example, stack some canned goods on it, I can. If I got a little bigger can, I can put that on it. Or if I want to, since this is the tornado shelter, I've got a few MREs here that are not the greatest food in the world, but they're perfectly functional, quite dusty. All of that stuff fits nicely on the shelf. So with that, I'm going to add a couple more. I'm going to put one about halfway down and another one about halfway up. And I'll have quite a bit of added convenient organized storage in this location. So hopefully you found this helpful. It's always good to be able to share some project ideas and some things that might be useful to you. I hope you found this to be useful information. Please hit the like button down below, and if you'd like to see more like this, subscribe and you get notified anytime I do one of these. Also, I'd appreciate if you'd run over and check out my blog at ewardwinning94.wordpress.com and see what I post there. Information about my travels, home improvement projects, handy hints and hacks, and just all sorts of stuff that you might find helpful. Thanks for watching.